So welcome everyone. This is Behind the Green Zone, episode 6. Adam Kahn cannot be with us. I'm your host, Adam Lang, and with me today is Bradley Gottemoeller from Continental Express. We are here at the American Trucking Association Management Conference and Exhibition in San Diego, California. Beautiful here. Great attendance, great booth activity. Bradley, can you share a little bit about your company and what you do?
Thanks, Adam. I couldn't agree more. Weather's been great in San Diego. So I'm Bradley Gottemoeller. I'm from Continental Express. We were founded in 1984 by my father, Russell Gottemoeller, with 5 trucks, and we are now up to 570 trucks.
Wow.
1,400 reefers, so we're a refrigerated truckload carrier. And we are domiciled out of Sydney, Ohio, and we have 9 terminals across the U.S. So, long-time Netradyne user, and it's been great product.
We appreciate you as a customer, appreciate you as a very safe carrier. You have an excellent reputation in the industry as taking care of your drivers. I can't count up the number of times you folks have placed in the Best Fleets to Drive For program. Tell us a little bit about that and what drove you to get interested in participating in something like that.
You know, Jane and Mark at Best Fleets are great. And, you know, we first started applying for that, 3 or 4 years ago. And our first year we applied, we actually got in the Best Fleets. And Jane and Mark were like, wow, how'd you guys do this? You're 100, got it your first try. And I said, we have always looked up to the Best Fleets to Drive For list for many, many years, and we always kind of filled it out in the background and graded it ourselves, and always felt that we're just not quite ready. We kind of used it as a guide, to kind of check ourselves on, and then finally, 3 or 4 years ago, we filled it out. We're like, you know what? I think we might have a shot this year. We've still a lot of improvement always to do, but. So we did. We filled it out, and really, to our surprise, and every year since, we're named one of the Best Fleets to Drive For, which is just such a huge honor. It's such a great program they have, and a lot of benefit.
Very large accomplishment. It's amazing, and having experienced that on the motor carrier side, I understand at least a few years ago what it entailed. I know every year it's more and more robust. You have to give more information, and you always have to up the ante with how you treat your drivers because, again, it's Best Fleets to Drive For.
Correct.
So you're looking at more of how you take care of your employees, how do you take care of your drivers. So that's excellent. Congratulations once again. I'm sure you folks will do very well this year.
I hope so.
But here at ATA, the big thing yesterday was ATRI's top 10. And, we see kind of some of the perennial things on there. 3rd year in a row, the economy was a top concern. What are your thoughts on that, Bradley? What do you think about the economy right now and what's going to get us through this?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, so let's break it down here a little bit.
Sure, absolutely.
The ATRI top 10. Yeah, I filled that out as well, a few months ago, and they asked for us to submit our top concerns. And my top 3 concerns at that point was legal reform, lawsuit, tort abuse, which is, I believe, is number 2. Insurance, just rising costs there, I think it was number 3. And then I had non-domiciled was one of mine as well. But
sure.
The overall economy, Russ, my father, always said, the trucking industry leads the economy. So if we go through a recession, generally speaking, by the time we're coming out of it, the rest of the macro economy is starting to go through it, and we're kind of through it. And if you look at the stock market over the last 5-6 years, it's just constantly all-time highs. The Dow's hitting 46,000, and it's crazy. But our trucking industry for the last 3.5 years has been just getting crucified. It's just beat up on cost and insurance, obviously, and the lawsuit, abuse, which I mentioned. And it's interesting because the greater economy has not yet reflected that. And it's either when we come out of it, then, because we're not out of it yet though either, is there going to be another great recession, as some of the indications Bob had on stage this morning showed it could. So it might be another year or 2 yet, but who knows?
Well, being a motor carrier in this environment, you folks have seemed to sustain yourselves well. I'm sure you have improved some efficiencies, and through these economic times, Again, I can recall back to the Great Recession, what that was like, me being a few years older than you, of course.
Yep.
And it was a tough time, but we got through it. Freight is something this country needs, and without it, who's going to stock the shelves?
Right.
Who's going to ship the toilet paper? Who's going to ship the food? Trucking is moving products across the country, so no matter what, it's needed. Do you feel like maybe there might be a capacity issue with like with companies out there? Do you think that maybe shippers have a lot more choices than they once did, and they might not be going with some of the best choices sometimes?
Yeah. No. It's so easy with our iPhones now to be able to book freight online.
Yeah.
And back on 2008, and everything was still call or on barely the web service was just barely starting up back then. So now you can book, even if I'm losing money on it. We don't take brokered freight, but they can just go and click, and I can book my next load. I don't even have to pick up the phone. So shippers are then getting kind of the kickback on that from these brokers or even other carriers that broker their freight, and they're able to get it done so quick and easy. But the quality of that carrier is not being in question, and that's where I think I'm not a big regulation guy, but the amount of accidents you see in the news, it's terrible, and all these bad carriers operating on the road who aren't investing in safety and cameras in their trucks and all the new safety features in the trucks, they're operating so on lower margins, and we're held to the same standard as them on trying to our cost.
That's right.
Our pricing. So we're getting graded against them on price, but they want us to still have all this nice bells and whistles with the cameras, which all adds up. So you pay what you get for it to an extent, and I think until the shippers kind of get, I don't want to say burnt, but they have to understand there is a risk with choosing some of these lesser safe carriers, and that who do they want hauling their freight ultimately? Do they want somebody who's doesn't care about safety and is running just illegally or whatever, and they're getting the lowest cost? They're saving a couple bucks, but or do they want a carrier who really cares and invests in the safety and in the trucks and in their people as well?
That's right.
For the trying to take care of all of our staff as well and give them good benefits and good home lives. It adds up. So
Well, you mentioned you have 545 power units, and
Yep.
I don't know the number of drivers that goes along with that and support employees, but how I feel about that, you are giving back to those families. They're not working for free, but they're
Yeah.
providing a very valuable service. And in my opinion, if I'm a shipper, I'm going to look at that family-run business. I'm going to look at what you do for the community of Sydney, which for those of you folks that don't know, it's right outside of Dayton, very quaint and great little town. I visited it a few years ago and loved it. But what you're doing, you're moving freight, but you're taking care of families. You're taking care of that community too. And as a shipper, I would get a warm and fuzzy feeling about that. You're giving back. And also, let's just say, for all intents and purposes, the worst were to happen, bad crash.
Yep.
Reputationally, a fleet like yours can weather that because you've got such an excellent track record.
That's where I'll stop you though, and that's where the problem is that if you get in an accident, it's not necessarily who's at fault, it's who's the money. And
That's true.
And we are reputationally been around for 40 years, and these lawyers are going to look at that and say, oh, they've been doing something right. They're going to have money. We need to go after them.
That's
where
a very good point.
these unsafe carriers that really just started up off the COVID high 3 or 4 years ago, they're running old equipment and they're not doing everything right. They get in an accident and kill somebody. There's no money there. There's gonna be no. Oh, okay. They might try to go after the broker, which I know that's getting the broker liability is going to be in the Supreme Court here this spring. So that's going to be interesting, which I think really, hopefully, it passes through. But that's where it is. So it's not even who's at fault. It's just who is the money.
The whole idea of going after who has the money versus who's at fault for this deal, it kind of shows the misplaced priorities.
Yep.
And we need our elected representatives to take care of trucking. Otherwise, they're going to litigate us out of the industry.
Right. And I always say these lawyers have everything to gain, nothing to lose.
That's
by
right.
following this, and us carriers, and even other industries as well, who's defending against that, we have everything to lose, nothing to gain. They sue me. What do I have to gain out of it? At the end, oh, okay, I'm not guilty. Great, again, essentially,
Right.
I'm not going to get slapped with a massive lawsuit, but how about all the legal fees, and everything that led up to that, and time I could have been working in the business, and yeah, it's interesting.
Well, and the perception is, oh, the insurance company will take care of it. And
Yeah, I mean
that's
not,
the motor carrier many
Yeah.
times, because
Yep.
even if you meet your large deductibles, you still have to
well,
pay
then
the premium.
this year, yeah, you're gonna they'll cover it this year, but the next year you got to renegotiate. I mean, your rates are just going to be tenfold
Yeah.
through the roof, and
They won't lose. The insurance company has to get their money.
exactly. And the industry as a whole is having a bad, because of these drivers having accidents. Insurance, I'm sure, is paying more out because of that.
Oh, yeah.
And then as a whole, all of our rates are going up, even though we are doing the right things and trying to, and we care, but our rates are just going through the roof as well. And it just, it eats into it all.
Yeah, it's tough out there, but we really appreciate what you're doing.
Yep.
Appreciate you as a customer and your creative use of our system, the ideas that you have given us for one alert in specific that we're still working on right now.
Yes,
and
we are.
I admire the fact that what that alert is focused on is ultimately driver safety.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And again, it just kind of goes to show that the culture at Continental Express is positive, driver centric. It's not a wonder why you guys get into the best fleets quite a bit. So,
well, I appreciate that, Adam, and your product is great as well, and we're glad to be long-standing partners with you, Gal, and appreciate you working with me on that alert. So
absolutely.
Looking forward to hopefully getting that rolled out here next year.
We'll keep pushing for you.
Good.
All right, Bradley.
Appreciate it, Adam.
Welcome back, everyone. We have a new guest. This is Michael Lasko from Boyle Transportation in Billerica, Massachusetts.
Billerica, Massachusetts. Yeah.
Billerica. I knew I'd get that kind of screwed up, but I appreciate that. We are coming live from an RV. This is we've named it Nettie or Nessie. I guess you can pick one or the other. But it is kind of our way to go across the country, visit our customers, and spread awareness about Netradyne. Take care of folks and show off some of our cameras. So, Michael, you are joining us here at the ATA MCE Management Conference and Exhibition. Much appreciated. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about Boyle Transportation?
Yeah, so, well, first of all, thanks for having me here, Adam.
You bet.
At Boyle, we have a very special mission. So, we're focused in kind of two lines of business, which is transporting life-saving medicines. And also we do a lot of work with the Department of Defense in support of soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. So, we take a lot of pride in what we do at Boyle, and it's important work and meaningful work, and it's kind of what keeps us motivated every day.
Heck yeah. Wow, that has got to be a big responsibility. You're shipping pharmaceuticals, you're shipping for DOD. You have to have a certain type of driver work for you, I'm assuming.
Yeah, definitely. It's the funnel for our applicants that come aboard gets real narrow real quick. So we try to recruit and retain the highest caliber drivers that are out there, and that's really our focus. And I think our safety record really speaks volumes for how well we've been able to do with hiring the right folks and keeping the right folks.
Well, that's the key, isn't it? Sometimes there's companies out there that don't know when it's a good time to part ways, and we know that attitude can drive the truck, and one incident doesn't mean that you got to part ways from a driver. But what gets you in trouble at Boyle, I guess I'd like to ask.
Ooh,
what kind of driver would fit in well, and what type of scenario does it turn into for someone that is asked to leave?
Yeah, well, look, I always say as a safety professional, anytime you have to terminate an employee, I always feel like I had a measure of failure in that, right?
I can see that.
And really, we're all humans.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, truck drivers are human beings too. And we're prone to make mistakes, and that happens,
That's
right? So you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, so
No.
to speak. So we really go with a kind of a constant learning approach. We bring folks in. I always say one of the biggest challenges I have is try to get the folks that we hire to unlearn all the things that they learned at their previous employer.
Okay.
Because we do it different. We pay different. We don't pay by the mile. We don't pay by the load. We pay a guaranteed wage with incentives for safety performance.
Wow.
So, and when we bring folks aboard, sure, they can come aboard with some habits that they might have had from the previous 10, 15, 20 years that they had been driving. But we work with those folks, and our camera system is a big component in that. So we can identify some maybe less desirable driving behaviors, things that likely to lead to potentially some sort of incident or negative outcome. And we coach and train and work with the folks, and we try to build them up. Right. Our goal is we want our folks to come aboard and not want to leave, and we want to help them be successful and stay with us for a long time.
Everything you just said there sounds like a recipe for success. And sorry to put you on the spot there with a question like that, but it's always been something that's interested me because I can relate to how it feels when you have to ask someone to depart. And it does feel like a little bit of a failure because it happened.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's people that just aren't going to have the right attitude and put safety at the forefront.
And hey, I'll tell you, it's not unique to trucking.
No.
Right? We could be, running a McDonald's, and you're going to have an element of people that come and work for you that just don't quite, bring what you're hoping that they're going to bring to the table.
Yeah, yeah.
So, it's important. It's an unfortunate side of the business, right? It's like the thing that we're least excited to deal with. But yeah, sometimes you have to make that hard decision, and it's really what's best for the company and what's best for the motoring public. We have a responsibility to not just the stakeholders at Boyle Transportation, but also to the users of the roadway that we share the highways with.
That's a very good thing to bring up right there is everybody else on the highway, they share their workspace.
Yeah.
In fact, drivers have a different workspace every day. But that's kind of what gets them into the field, the uniqueness and the everyday differentiators, I guess. So one of the big things here at ATA, and first I got to ask, have you gotten some good positive things out of the conference so far?
Yeah, so I really enjoy the MCE every year. It's really great for the more strategic kind of perspectives, where the industry is at and where it's going. Mm-hmm. What some of the indicators are telling us, and it's really you get a lot of solid information that you can bring home and share with your team, and kind of work to pivot where needed and make some changes as needed to address some of the challenges that we're all facing together. So
Sure.
This is a great conference when it comes to sharing information and really getting out and networking with some industry leaders and getting some different insights and perspectives. So yeah, it's a great time being here, and ATA always does an outstanding job with this conference.
I would agree, and it was very interesting yesterday when ATRI released their top 10 issues in trucking, and there was one that was noticeably absent. Did you pick up on which one?
No, what's the insight?
The driver shortage. So, and I've always had thoughts on this, but I would love to hear your thoughts on the perceived driver shortage.
Yeah, well, I tell you, I think it's really a tale of two cities on that topic, because pre-COVID, my answer would be totally different, and post-COVID is totally different. Mm-hmm. And just this economic downturn, this freight recession that we've been in, has really changed that. So I think we're in a period where there's a bit of excess capacity in the market. Yeah. You saw a lot of people, it was kind of the boom time, during COVID, and with the amount of stuff that people were buying and shipping online, and we're all kind of stranded in our houses back then, right? So all of a sudden, there's a lot of new entrants into the market. Right, yes. And folks are hiring drivers, as quick as you possibly can, and then the freight recession kind of hit, and the bottom kind of dropped out of that a bit. So now there's a good bit of excess capacity, but we're seeing that. Unfortunately, it kind of levels out over time. You're going to see some companies that don't quite make it through the cut. So that's why it's important to make sure you're involved in these kind of things. Coming to MCE, engaging with technology partners like Netradyne. These are the things that keep you a step ahead of some of these challenges. So yeah, it's really interesting dilemma. Is there a shortage? Is there not a shortage? I think really the question is, what kind of drivers are entering the market currently as opposed to what used to be? Because I can tell you, when I started my career, I started as a professional driver. The folks that were driving then were generally, veteran folks that grew up around trucks and had mechanical expertise, and they could go out and adjust the, pop the hood open and make all kinds of adjustments and
change a light,
and whatever, right? And that's not quite the skill set that you get these days, right?
It's a little different.
You got to build that internally. So it's really the makeup of the folks in the workforce now, and it requires a little bit more resources on the side of the carrier to address those shortcomings. So you got to spend more time working with folks on, hey, here's some low-level maintenance that you can perform as a driver, and this is how you do it, and here's the tools that you need, and you got to equip your folks with everything they need to succeed. So it's a kind of a very loaded answer to your question, but there's a lot of different ways you can look at that question.
Well, you said something about, the driver of today is different than the driver of many years ago, and I would agree with you, but I would also say that AI has changed things in trucking and utilization of AI. Now, you're always going to need a little bit of the human element, but what are your thoughts on using AI, embracing AI? Where do you think it's really helping you out?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So I'm a big advocate for AI. I think it's really exciting, not just in trucking, but just in society in general, to see where AI is going to bring us. I kind of liken it to smartphones. When the smartphone came out, it really changed human existence on the planet Earth. And I got a feeling AI is going to be right along those lines, if not maybe even more pronounced. So, but as it relates to trucking, yeah, sure. I embrace AI. We have some features, even with Netradyne, there's some AI features that we utilize, but you're absolutely right. It doesn't replace a human being in that one-on-one interaction with a professional driver.
Sure.
Because, like I said, I started as a driver. If I had a robot talking to me about how to improve my driving skills, I can promise you I wouldn't have been very receptive to that.
Sure.
Unfortunately, that's not what we do, and that's not what we have. So, we engage our folks. The AI kind of helps point out the leading indicators.
There you go.
Right, and gives us a little bit of a focus and helps make us more efficient in the back office, and then makes the conversation that we're having with our folks, our drivers, much more relevant. So the buy-in that we get from them when we're talking about problems or development that they need or issues that they have, you get the buy-in instantly because it relates to them.
So I like that. So AI is kind of like the detective to ferret out where the issues are, and then that's where you can bring in the human touch. But you don't necessarily have to have more people for that. You can utilize AI to help your focus.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a great example. There's a cool feature that Netradyne has where I can use AI to search for an incident that occurred in a video. So any safety folks that are listening to this we can relate. Sometimes you're looking for that needle in the haystack.
Yeah.
Driver might have been in a sleeper berth and asleep, or maybe they're in a hotel and they don't know what time exactly an incident occurred, and you're like, okay, now you're digging and trying to find the needle in the haystack. There's this great feature where I can type in, find the red car that hit my truck, boom, there's the video. And I'll tell you, that saved me hours of every day of having to dig for this kind of stuff. So can it make us efficient? Absolutely. Is it a replacement for human interaction? Absolutely not.
No. Yeah. Great. We talked about the economy a little bit earlier. What are your thoughts on the economy being the top concern?
Yeah, I think we've seen the economic situation improve slightly over the last maybe quarter or two. I'm hoping that trajectory continues. But yeah, it's definitely something that we're keeping a close eye on. Obviously, with a little bit of excess capacity in the market, you get some folks that are, probably doing things a little bit cheaper than really what they need to do to break even. And that kind of spirals, kind of relates to some of these companies that you hear that, just aren't quite making it, right? So the economy is definitely something that we're keeping a very close eye on, but the indications are looking like we're heading in the right direction. So really the focus now is just keeping the right people, keeping them on mission, keeping them excited about the important work that we do, and waiting for the upswing.
Well, our previous guest kind of said, you get what you pay for, right? Yeah. And there are cheaper carriers out there, but you might end up less than thrilled about the way that your freight gets there, or
Yeah.
even worse, being vicariously liable for something that that carrier that you chose did. So paying that extra as a shipper to get the highest possible quality, I think that that's something that should also take center stage too in any RFP negotiations with a customer. I mean, customers are great. Without them, we wouldn't have anything to truck. Folks wouldn't have anything to buy. It'd be a bad situation. But proving out your value time and time again, being a safe fleet, you know, it goes to show that when you do have an issue with one of those carriers, I'm sure the shipper is thinking to themselves, geez, you know, I wish I would have gone down the road and talked to Mike and his team.
Well, I'll tell you, that's a call. You know, that's a call that we get pretty often, to be honest with you. You know, in the last couple of years, sure, customers have become more price sensitive, and in some cases forget why they were paying for, you know, the security, the safety, the quality that, you know, some of the top carriers like Boyle provide.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you know, they get burned on a load, you know, some sort of horrific accident, and they lost $10 million of product. Then they start remembering, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully you don't want that to happen. I don't wish that upon anybody. But just know that there are carriers out there that are doing it right, and they make the investments in technology and their people to make sure that we're providing a reliable, you know, quality, secure service that you can depend on. That's what we try to do at Boyle.
And I'm thinking, you know, a lot of the fleets here, the ones that are engaged in industry memberships, probably are of the same mindset as you. And again, I'm going to point to the previous guest. You know, he kind of said the same thing. So for those listening that aren't involved in industry associations, whether it's ATA or your state association, join something. You're going to get some takeaways. You're going to get some good stuff from it. Yeah,
and look, you know, there's a lot of conferences that I think we all love to go to, right? And each of them have their own kind of unique perspective. So ATA MCE, you know, really getting that strategic kind of, you know, where's the industry at, where are we headed? There's other, you know, more ATA SSHR. You're gonna, you know, safety best practices and, you know, kind of the threats that are in that environment. Yeah. So, you know, it's really important to get out there and make those connections. You know, connect with some vendors. There's folks that have really good, better mousetraps that they created to solve a problem. And you network with folks at these things, and you know, you meet some of the best safety professionals. You meet some of the best executives, and these are folks that have probably dealt with some of the problems that you have in your fleet, right? Yeah. So it's an excellent resource. You get out there and attend some of these things for sure.
Yeah, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Someone here
has already done it. Somebody here already did all that hard work for you.
They'll help it out. Yeah. Well, Michael, I can't thank you enough for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
And this is a great RV you guys got going on.
Yeah, isn't it though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Appreciate that.
All right. So thanks again for having me.
Yeah. Take care.